Go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of the community podcast for Ashes of Creation. I'm your host and moderator, the Big Chick Giant, and today's guests are Agelos and Zara, two well-known community members.
Hello.
Hi, how's everyone doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you guys doing?
Pretty great.
Great.
I'm glad to hear. So, quick reminder for anybody that is new to the podcast. This is not a podcast where we talk about like what's new with Ashes of Creation or how awesome Ashes of Creation is. This is a podcast for the community members that have been active in the community, are well known within the community, and yeah, this podcast is pretty much meant to put those guys in the spotlight. And then Angelos, like everybody knows you, and you're like, you do your own podcasts, you cover like a lot of stuff that is about Ashes of Creation. And Zara is one of my favorite people on the Discord because she's really active and I think everybody knows her. So how about we get started right away, because today's topic is going to be one of my favorite ones. And because today we're going to talk about PvP. Oh yeah, and before we get started, quick update. Zara is currently in the middle of a storm, but she still managed to join us on the podcast, so I'm really grateful for that. So, but let's get started. So today's topic is PvP. So, and the question right now is exactly what is player versus player, because PvP stands for player versus player. And with that, I kind of want to go into, because I've been playing MMORPGs since like EverQuest 1, and I noticed that over the last years there's a lot of new terminology coming up and a lot of more different ways that people describe PvP. So what I want to know from you two right now is, what's your favorite kind of PvP? Why do you want it in Ashes of Creation? And what do you like about it? Why do you think PvP has to be in an MMO like Ashes? Agelos, why don't you start us off?
And I was just about ready to say ladies first. No, that's cool. Well, see, the thing that I like most about PvP is I actually like what they're doing with Ashes of Creation with the Karma style PvP. The reason being is the very first MMO that I ever played was Ultima Online. So the whole idea of being able to steal from another player, kill another player, actually becoming a PKer is something that's near and dear to my heart, something that it got me into the genre. And in my eyes, MMOs aren't so much, I guess, games as much as worlds to live in. And the idea of being completely balanced in terms of PvP, it just doesn't make sense, because that doesn't happen. There's always someone better than you, or, they come to the fight, with a gun instead of a knife, that kind of deal. Those kind of real life situations are what this open world Karma PvP allows. It's not like I have to wait in a queue, which disconnects me from the world. It allows me to go in and experience the world as I normally would, but having that added danger of people are terrible, and who knows if someone's going to come up and stab me in the face.
Okay. Zara, what about you? Zara? Ooh, I guess that storm hit Zara pretty hard right now. Like I said just a minute ago. Oh, you here? You there?
Yeah, sorry about that. Personally for me, I've been playing lots of Terra back then. I did lots of open world PvP with a couple of my friends, and we would just go out of our way to PK people. And I really enjoyed that aspect of being able to get a group together and just overcome all these obstacles, all these people in the way. And I like skill versus gear, because as a person who's never gone out of their way to get geared, especially for a game that you only joined later on, it's really something important to be able to have skill. Like, you overcome other people who are pay to win, who pay for all their gear and all this stuff, and you just beat them. It's just such a great feeling.
Okay. So wait, let me add my 5 cents, because Jealous, before we actually started the podcast, you mentioned that you hate structured PvP in MMORPGs. All right. I kind of get what you're saying, because it has the whole, immersion aspect and everything. And, if you have better stuff than other people and you want to gank them whatsoever, and you want to have an open world PvP environment, that works. But don't you agree that in some ways there should be, or there could be, it doesn't have to be in the open world. It needs to be in a closed. Like here's my opinion on the whole thing. I love open world PvP. I love jumping on people that don't expect it. I don't if they're 2 level lower below me, or they have their gear isn't as good as mine. That's fine. That's an open world situation. But once in a while, maybe on a Sunday, maybe I don't know, after work, maybe if I oh, I'm sorry about that. Apparently, yeah, I need to turn this off 1 second. There we go. And so apparently, I had some other alerts on. I'm sorry about that, guys. But the thing I wanted to say is that I get what you're saying. Open world PvP is fine and everything great. But don't you feel like sometimes you just want to go into an arena where you matched evenly with somebody else, and just like let skill decide who is the better player?
Oh, for sure. That is exactly what I'm looking to. You are given the gear and you just go out and fight, and basically whoever is the better player wins. And that is so exciting for me.
The whole idea of just being able to jump into it, I get the appeal of that kind of thing. And I'm not against the appeal of that. All right. It's nice going in knowing you're going in against 10 other players. But it's funny, because the whole idea of battlegrounds, I know how you were saying, like, isn't it just nice going in knowing what the other side has? I'm like, well, then you're eliminating all those amazing moments, like in Lord of the Rings, the Battle of Helm's Deep, when Eckenbrand comes up over the hill. If it's an instant set of people, you're pretty much stuck in the keep, and you got your Yorukai outside, and that's all you got. You remove those amazing areas when all of a sudden you're fighting these other groups of people and someone comes charging over the hill, right? And if you want these balanced PvP, I don't think MMOs are necessarily the place to get them. I mean, there's other games out there that have those 100% skill. The maps are perfectly symmetrical. Those games are out there. I don't think they're needed in an MMO, because like what Zara was saying earlier, she took out her group of friends that would go out and they would just PK. That gives you that sense of strategy even in that point, because how many people you have, what you guys are capable of. It also, gives you the opportunity of going, I don't think we can handle this amount of people. Let's, do a tactical retreat. In games where it's a perfect 10 on 10, what's coming, what's there, and it's not so much of a battle as it is a chess game. And I mean, I could go play chess.
Well, I get what you're saying, and this is actually gonna go into a topic that we gonna discuss in a couple minutes. But let's move on to the next one, because I think the next one is gonna fit pretty well in this what we're talking about right now. So there is something Steven said on a live stream a while back, where he said, and I cannot recall the exact stream, and I know I should be able to recall it, but I can't. But I know he said it for sure. He said, and he stated, PvE will drive PvP content. So that statement for me alone is such a big, I wouldn't say problem or issue, more like a concern, because I feel like there are a lot of people, and this is just my own personal experience. I'm not talking about my own personal experience. I'm not talking about any concrete numbers. I'm not talking about anything that I know for sure. Just I've been playing MMORPGs for a while, I think, and Jealous, Ultima Online. So I think we're pretty much in the same time frame. But I always feel like that there is a bigger PvE group than there is a PvP group. So the concern that I have now is that PvE players apparently are going to drive PvP content. So, but my concern is, in what exact way? Because apparently the world is gonna change a lot, but if PvE players prefer PvE and PvP players prefer PvP, don't you think there's gonna be at some point there's gonna be just like a stalemate where nothing is really going to change and they're just gonna stay the way they are?
No. This is a perfect term for what is going to happen. It's something we call emergent gameplay. This is what PvE driving PvP content means. Because as PvPers are going out doing their thing, you know, dungeons, quests, everything like that, you're developing nodes, you're unlocking different things within an area's zone of influence, right? You are making things available. But here's the thing, with PvP, it being something that you're there and resources being limited in the world, if let's just say, for instance, it's easy to do with crafting because we know this is something that's going to happen. PvE expands a node, right? So we got a village, we're doing our own little thing, we expand the node out further. By doing so, it unlocks a dungeon, all right? Great, all right, that's PvE content, who really cares, right? Well, by completing this dungeon, it then opens up a node of very rare ore, which is used to craft all gear, including PvP gear. Well, here's the thing. We have one guild who's controlling it, who's farming it down and doesn't let anyone else pass. There's your PvP content. People going, there's a super rich node of ore over there that we could use for, you know, whatever we need to advance our play. We want it. They have it. They won't give it to us. That's your PvE driving PvP content. As the PvP expands and people control different nodes and different things like that in different areas, they're going to naturally go, this is mine, you can't touch it, especially since resources are rare. Now, I don't know if this is going to go up so much as even raid content. Maybe it could be something like if like a raid or a dungeon is cleared by a group of people, it is cleared for everyone for a series of time, right? Well, that would mean, well, I need to control that area so that way the next time it spawns, I can get it. So there's how I'm seeing PvE driving the PvP content, because you have PvE developing something that is valuable, and the only way to get it away from the people who currently own it is by PvP.
Okay.
For sure, yeah. There is something that somebody said in chat, nodes will drive PvP, and I think that's what you're talking about, Agilos. For instance, caravans and all this, you will have to go out of your way to do PvP. Say people are coming down to you and you have your caravan and you want to protect it. Of course, that's the basic example. You will have to protect what is yours. Even though you might not instigate the PvP might come to you. And say you don't have enough money to hire people to protect your caravan, you will have to go out of your way to do it yourself. If you care about your items that much. But for sure, I agree with what you were saying.
It's not even caring about your items, and I'm glad you brought up caravans. What if you and your guild are leveling up a node, and there is an opposing node on the other side? Obviously, one will hinder the other. When one grows, the other one cannot expand past its zone of influence. So as the zone of influence of node A is growing, it, you know, retards the growth of node B. By targeting caravans, by limiting the resources going into a node, you are therefore using PvP to further PvE means.
Okay, but let me ask you guys this question, because we're talking a lot about like developing nodes, developing guilds, and everything. And I'm not disagreeing with you guys. I'm not disagreeing. The problem that, or not the problem, it's something scratching me in the back of my head when I think about it, and that is it's pretty much, I'm pretty much sure that for the foreseeable future, after the game launches, for a while we're gonna have conflicts left and right, and but don't you think that at some point the whole aspect of, you know, conflict and attacking, defending is gonna settle? And the PvE focused players, you know, they're gonna find a way to like settle stuff without conflict?
No, there's always conflict in everything we find, including the real world. You can never really settle conflict. And since conflict, there is gap between all these abilities. See, like sieges, you'll have time between everything. Right before the siege, you'll have time, like right before the storm, you know, it'll be calm. And each time that you go on and everything is calm, you'll, I don't know how to really articulate it, but nothing will die down. There's always going to be something. There's always going to be someone looking forward to combat, especially if it's, you know, calm for the certain amount of time.
And someone in chat, and I actually want to bring this up because they brought it up saying, my fear is that the system, there won't be enough PvP to scratch the itch for PvP players. This is something that actually does concern me. If you are one of these people who are like WoW Arena champions,
Yes,
or whatever, I don't know if this game will do it. And again, I don't know. Maybe the arenas and stuff, like they might have something to scratch your itch. But I know some of the people who are like thinking, I heard someone talk about this on, oh, it's going to be great. My guild and I, we're going to siege all day. I'm like, you do realize that's not going to happen, right? Like, it's going to take weeks between sieges. So if you think you're going to run around like we did in Dark Age of Camelot or even ESO, you've got another thing coming, and you clearly don't know anything about how this game is going to function. It's going to take time. And I'm glad you were mentioning about becoming stale.
yes.
Competitive nature does not allow people to be.
Exactly.
World of Warcraft is 12 years old. There is still a race every single time that a new raid comes out for World First. When new arena seasons come out, there is new combat going on constantly to be ahead of an arena. An older game, Shadowban, I don't know if anyone ever played that before, but I did. I played a bunch. Well, you know this. I woke up and at one point in time, there was a guild who controlled the entire northern continent. Like the entire thing was just their banner. And they had it for months. But after a certain period of time, I logged in one day and it was gone. Everything was gone. The idea of World War, I think it's World War B, as they called it in EVE Online with the Goon Squad, who owned so much of this prime real estate in space. Eventually, it got to the point, and they owned it for such a long period of time, it got to the point where all the other alliances got together and went, listen, we're not going to be able to grow if we don't take these guys out. We have to take them out. And it banded together. Eventually, even if you look at it in a real world sense, eventually you push a people too far, right? They have desires to be more than what they are. There's very few people who are like, I'm fine just doing this and nothing else. People want to grow. They want to progress. And eventually, if you are halted long enough, people will go, all right, Zara, you and our guilds are mortal enemies, let's say. We're fighting whatever, but then, Giants Guild has taken over almost everything and has held everything for months.
We'll band together and try to overcome.
I would be like, until he's gone, you and I are a truce. Like, that's how it would work.
So you're pretty much saying that the will and the rush to compete against others and always to advance your own guild and your own character is gonna drive the PvP conspect no matter what.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Because here's the thing that it's not, like I said, it's not a worry, it's not a problem or something. It's just something that itches me in the back of my head. Because what I can see is there's gonna be the five top communities on the server who are going to run the 5 metropolises. They're gonna be the 5 superpowers on the server, and they're just gonna be like, yeah, you know what? There's nobody really else on the server. Our communities are the majority of the community or the player base on the server, so we're just gonna call it a truce. So and because Steven said this as well, he said no server is gonna be the same. I think there is not a big chance, but there's still a chance that on one server this is gonna be the situation where there's gonna be a stalemate at the end of maybe the release rush. You're right. Every server is gonna be different, and there will be servers where big guilds and stuff are gonna be able to control very large portions of the game. But just like I said before, eventually people will expand out here. And I'm glad you brought this up. You said no server will be the same. PvE content driving PvP. All right. So you're playing. All right. You've done your thing. It's great.
Your friend's playing on another server and went, hey, Zara, have you beaten, I don't know, Dungeon A? And you're like, I don't even have Dungeon A on my map. Oh, well, did you not develop this node, you know, in this area? Well, no, it's hampered in growth by these nodes. Well, PvP or PvE players who want to see and experience that said content, because Steven has said before that as nodes progress, it will lock off content. Because as a node goes up and suppresses the actions of other nodes, you will lock things out. I think there will be a drive from the PvE community to see the various content that's out there by going, you know, I heard from someone on the forums, for instance, on their map, they have this dungeon or this raid. We don't have that. Let's push to develop that node. And as they're developing, they're like, well, it's halted by these nodes, and your PvP content is going to happen.
And then that stops the server from being dead in that aspect. But if you're talking about PvP wise, where there's nothing going on between everybody who's had a truce, people will always want something. There's always going to be action. And you're saying that every server is different. Every person is different. So everybody that is in charge, they may handle situations differently. So say that there is, this is just a thought, but say that there are the 5 metropoli or metropolises, and each leader is at a truce. There's going to be smaller nodes. Smaller people are leading those nodes as well. So it's not just going to be dormant right there. They're going to try to grow and try to take down other metropolises and force their way to become #1 as well.
Another game that I play, Elder Scrolls Online, has this in not to such the large thing, but their trade system's different. They don't have any auction house. It's done through trade stalls that you have to do a blind bid system in order to get. The competition is insane. And I was actually in one of the largest trade guilds available, and they held the same stall for probably about a year. Until another one, a name that I've never even heard of, popped up, who just so happened to have enough money and outbid us. We haven't had a guild stall in like 6 weeks.
Really?
Like, we lost our hold on power, that we've had the same stall for like a year. And then out of nowhere, somebody with tons of money and their little trade guild popped up and took our stall, and we have not been able to get it back.
The problem is, like, I fear that at some point people are going to be like, yeah, I don't want to lose whatever I just built up. And
yeah, but then you have people who's going, I need to gain more than what I have. Yeah, you eventually will hit a stagnation point where
yes,
I have to defend what I have, but that doesn't mean the other people have. They still want to grow.
That's true. All right, let's jump to the next topic, because that's something you wanted to talk about, Agelos, which is, do we like the corruption system? Because it's been a topic, and I watched this. Like, for those who don't know me, I lurk on the Discord like every day. Like, I wake up in the morning, go to work, Discord gets put on the browser, and here we go. And there's a lot of people been talking about, you know, the corruption system. I don't care. I gonna go gank. I gonna go kill everybody, and that's gonna be that. And I feel like, personally, this is my opinion, because back when I used to play Black Desert Online, I was a little bit known for stomping like stream snipers and people that, you know, gank other people.
Yep.
And the problem I need to stop using the word problem. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
The worry that I have is that the corruption system is not gonna be. Steven said this. He said that the corruption system is gonna be enough to keep people from mass killing other people. But from experience, I just know that sometimes smart people, evil smart people, find ways around certain systems that are in place in games to prevent certain things.
Okay. So sorry to interrupt you there, but there is also the implementation of bounty hunters. And that's not the restriction of the corruption isn't the only thing stalling players from mass killing. It's the bounty hunters that will go out of their way. So
yeah, but you think
that
the reward is gonna be enough?
The reward of just killing the person who's been killing all these innocent people who just want to play the game would be satisfying enough for me. And then you put money on top of that then I'd be 10 times happier than I was before.
Yeah,
And
and
that will-
I
Go
see
ahead.
someone in chat here, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm glad you brought it up. The idea of incentives, that always drives people, right?
Mhm.
What is the incentive? Corruption should have incentives as well. I mean, by being able to kill other players and stealing, like, because people will drop resources and possibly gear. We're still not sure on that part yet. I know corrupted players have a chance.
Yes, corrupt is definitely. I can confirm that.
That one I know for a fact. But there's still a chance by killing a player, right? You are going to be able to gain something. And actually, I love when I have the PvE Care Bears. Now, I'm going to say this. I actually am more of a PvE player than I am a PvP player. Like I am. I like raiding. I like dungeons. That's what I like doing the most. But I know a lot of people in the community is like, oh, well, if I don't like PvP games, I'll just stay out of PvP areas and I don't ever have to see PvP ever. That's not going to happen because of corrupted players. Now, I played Ultima Online, obviously, and there was always the risk of player killers are people who would steal from you, like because they could steal from you. It just gave you that sense of you had to be on your guard when you saw people coming along. It's the same now. Like you walk down the street, someone's walking up to you. Are they going to pickpocket you? Are they going to attack you? Like anything like that, it could happen. You just have to be aware. And the corruption system will give some deterrent, because you also got to remember there's a chance that you can lose skill levels as well. Like experience, skill levels, like when you get too much corruption, you will become weaker.
Like
and on top of that, you'll lose your items once you die as well. Because it's not just like, hey, I'm dead. You lose all the money on you. You'll lose your armor. You'll lose your weapons, your potions, everything. And you'll lose all the stuff that you killed the other people for. So you don't win. That's something that's detrimental to you.
like
It's a risk versus reward mechanic. You have a chance of coming away big, or you could lose it all.
Like the thing that I would like for the corruption system is for it to be strong enough to push people, because everybody who's watching right now, and you too, everybody plays MMORPGs, and everybody knows there are those kind of players out there. You know, the bandits, the pirates. They just get a kick out of torturing or trolling like normal casual players, and they just go out there and they kill because it makes them feel better. Those people are out there, everybody knows them, and not everybody likes them. So, because Steven also mentioned the term meaningful conflict. What I would like out of the corruption system is the corruption system to be strong enough to push those talented troll, bandit, pirates, whatever you want to call them, players away from, you know, ganking the low-level ones, ganking the poor casual ones, and pushing them more towards the meaningful conflict. Because I would rather see those players, those strong players that apparently they know how to play their class, and they are good because, you know, they can gank 10, 15 people in a row without a problem. But I would rather see the corruption system be strong enough to push those players into the meaningful conflict, like caravans, sieges, and that sort of stuff, and to enhance that experience. Like, that's what I want out of the corruption system.
Me too.
You know, and I actually see someone in chat, and I'm glad they brought it up, because this is something that will happen as well, especially with the bounty hunter system. An idea of a community blacklist.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely gonna happen.
Even if a person has gotten corruption, they are a PKer who is just known for hanging out in newbie areas and attacking people, you know, just ganking for the life of it. Their name will get out there as a player who, you know, even when they are considered a non-combatant again, like when their corruption has fallen off, however that mechanic is going to work, their name will still be out there, especially if they're one of those really trolly people. You know, the occasional PKer, you're probably not going to remember the name. I've got PK'd multiple times in Ultima Online. I don't remember who they are. I do remember the names of a couple people who were known throughout the community as having characters who only PK'd low B characters and were just trolls for the sake of being trolls.
And it'll fuel some of them as well. It'll fuel them knowing that people talk about them and that they're afraid of them.
Oh, that's the serial killer mentality, right?
But the thing, and I'm reading chat as well. Like he writes community blacklist, and if I have to think back now, like all the stream snipers and, you know, PKers that I killed in my day, I remember only a few of them, but I definitely remember way more guilds that had members like that. So I think with communities being a bigger part than guilds and players themselves, I think such community blacklists are gonna play a big role with like sorting those sort of players out.
Oh yeah.
And
I
it'll
mean,
be
go
just
ahead.
like you said. Sorry about that. Just like you said, even when they're green named or whatever, and they're not red named, there's no corruption at all. People will remember them for being a bad person, and some will take it upon themselves to just KOS them because they were KOS'd, you know?
Yeah. And with corruption, you also got to remember, eventually you are not this game is not World of Warcraft. This is not some of these older games where you can just die and respawn and come back over and over again. Because as your gear breaks, you're losing monetary, like you will eventually run out of funds. The same with, especially if your character starts losing progression and like maybe even de-leveling, that kind of idea for a corruption system, you're going to see people stepping away from being a corrupted player because they will end up having to spend, I don't know, 8 hours PKing and then realizing, oh my goodness, I've lost 2 weeks worth of progression work, both in terms of money lost in gear and skill progression.
But what if I'm taking Black Desert now as an example, or other games that have a bandit town or whatsoever, what if the way of getting rid of your corruption isn't strong enough so they can, make up for it? If they get a debuff or something and they are going to be corrupted for a while, but then they have to go and do a quest or kill a bunch of mobs, and if that's not strong enough, they can, rotate between, getting rid of the corruption and going out and PKing. What if that part of the system isn't as strong as we need it to be? Like,
obviously, any type of if corruption is either not dropping off fast enough, which honestly it probably shouldn't, or even is dropping off too fast and the incentive's not there, it's something that we'd have to figure out during the alpha testing. Because you need it to be meaningful. If people can run around PKing and stuff like that and it drops off before there's any kind of repercussions for their actions, yeah, the system needs tweaked. And that's more of a systems issue instead of a personal issue.
Mm-hmm. See, it's also if the person goes out of their way to build up all this corruption in the first place, they don't necessarily deserve it to be wiped so easily. Like once you die, not all of the corruption is going to be lost. It'll like just take a chunk perhaps. And you can't necessarily have your friend KOS you all the time, like kill you to get rid of your corruption, because you'll spawn randomly in the world. It's going to be pretty difficult to do that. So you learn your lesson kind of thing to not do that anymore.
And there could also be a type of diminishing returns if the same player kills you over and over and over again. The corruption stack either being exponentially more powerful on that person, or like in terms of, like you said, with losing the corruption, it being much less because you have to be killed by multiple players. But this actually brings up a really great somebody in ESO, because you could steal in that game, right?
Yes.
And you could get a bounty. Somebody, just for the giggles of it, got like, I forget, like 4 million gold bounty. Now, bounty clears over time, but it's something like 50 gold every 20 minutes or something like that. The guy would essentially, unless he's willing to spend 3 million gold, which was of an exorbitant amount of money, it would have taken him something like 6 months of being in game before he was actually able to even go into a city anymore, because guards had him as kill on sight. By being a corrupted player, you're going to have this. You're not going to be able to go into certain cities because guards, once you are known as a bad player, you're, in the system wise, not just because you're an awful person, but because you are a corrupted player and that's how the NPCs see you, you'll be kill on sight. You won't even be able to maybe access your bank unless you go to one of these pirate havens, but those may or may not exist. And if they are, I'm sure the game will limit their functionality, going, if you're living in a pirate haven, you're not going to have access to that metropolis that actually has an extended trade network. You're limited to what's in here and with all the other bad people who are already living here.
Personally, I hope there is a system like that that will be like, the Dark Brotherhood has their own cave to hang out in. Somewhere you can go without being killed immediately. And I want, you know how guards are basically invincible in games. I want these people to be able to actually kill guards and then try to run away afterwards. Like, this guard's on your back, he's not letting you go. You can kill him and then run away. I want killable guards, basically.
I want killable guards too, but the guard should be powerful based on the amount of resources that are being paid by the node government.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes
sense. So
sense.
if it's like encampment, your guard won't necessarily be strong at all. He'll be basically a starter level. But in a Metropolis case, he'll have a full decked out armor. He'll be able to basically win the fight.
It doesn't even need to go on the idea of leveling. It could just be based on government. Like when the government goes, okay, how are we going to spend our money? Do we want to build more public works, or do we want to pay for better guards? So like a mayor who decides, listen, we're gonna put 20% more gold in our budget towards more powerful guards. The guards would be exponentially more powerful than the baseline.
Mm-hmm.
All right, talking about government, and this is actually I'm trying to connect two dots here, so this is probably going to be like long fetched. Earlier we talked about, and I don't want to interrupt the whole corruption system because I know like all three of us we can talk about this like for 24/7. But I still do have some other topics we have to go through, and I know this is a topic we talked about, like it was like the first thing we talked about. It's about structured PvP. I'm gonna get this. Yep. So there was a podcast, and I remember this also really clearly because this was for me personally really funny. Because apparently there came a question up about arena style gameplay, meaning two people go in, same level, they get the same gear, they're ready to go, skill decides. And from what I recall correctly, and if you guys don't believe me, I can look through all the past streams, which are, by the way, so many at this point, and find the exact moment. But there was a moment where that question came up, and Steven was straight up, no, we're not going to have that. We're going to have...
It's the last one, actually. The one that just happened.
That wasn't... No, it's not, there was another one a while back, because that question came up, and then Jeff kind of disagreed on that. They weren't sure about that. So we talked about this earlier, but apparently there won't be any structured PvP in Ashes, which for me personally, because I played a lot of Guild Wars. Guild Wars 2 in particular. And I love Guild Wars 2, great game. It's a casual game. You go in with your guild, you have fun, you do raids, you do events, you explore the world, yada, yada, yada. But every couple of days, I love to go into the PvP launch and just do the PvP without worrying about my gear, and I could just have my skill aside. And I kind of miss that in other games that I used to play. For example, I played the shit. I shouldn't swear on the podcast. It's something I need to write down. And I played a lot of Black Desert Online, and we used to, because Black Desert Online is like, everybody who knows Black Desert Online is a really PvP focused game. And we used to try and practice in the arena. And we always had like, we're not evenly matched, take your helmet off, take your boots off, alright, now we're somewhat matched, and I always thought that's a pain in the ass. I need to stop swearing, jeez.
It's okay.
And I get jealous. Like I get your point of the whole immersion thing, and but I don't know. Like my personal opinion is I like the whole immersion thing. Like if I can get immersed in a game, heck yeah. But once in a while, I just want to go nuts and head against somebody else in the same game without worrying about, you know, my gear, my level. I just want to go toe and toe and just see like who's a better player. I want to get better. I want to practice. So
sorry.
Yeah, you know that's pretty much it, because that's how my point in the whole no structured PvP in Ashes. That's how my point. Like I see why, but I personally don't agree with it.
See, personally, I think that if you want a non-immersed game, like where you can you don't have to have the same gear. You can go out and do just open world PvP. You don't need the arena instance kind of thing, because you'll find people who have higher gear than you and then lower gear than you, so you can get that with just going out in the world and just fighting people. But for arenas, for typical arenas, you'll end up with just the gear that you're given. You'll be on the same level as them. And I really want it to be skill based. People who fight all the time, who are experienced, who are the ability to train and better yourself is what I want to see. I want to see results, especially if you're in a military node and you have to do the competition to get in that hierarchy seat. You'll have to train for that if you want to be a part of that. And I think that's pretty important. Did they clarify that arenas are only for Metropolis stage?
I don't know if they clarified that one way or the other. We just know it's going to be part of the game style. But here's something that always makes me, they brought this up in the very last live stream that they did. Is they actually said how PvP is not, they're not balancing PvP based on 1v1. That is not their goal. They're doing group and raid versus raid. So you're not going to be able to, there will probably be classes or specializations that will just roll other specializations. But when done within a group is how they're planning on balancing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but still you have, and I mean, like, I'm talking 1 versus 1. I mean, like, just in a structured PvP arena system. Like, it doesn't need to be 1 versus 1. I can do 1 versus 1 duels anywhere in the world. Just, I don't know, like, if I want to,
that's if they have duels.
Yeah, that's if they have duels. But I don't know, they said their arena. They said they for example, PAX. They said they're gonna have different like matchups. I think, what was it? 3 versus 3, 5 versus 5, 8 versus 8.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
So like, the way, here's the thing, because they gonna the way they're gonna have it set it up at PAX, and this is the only thing that makes sense to me, is like, they're gonna go in and all the classes that are playable gonna be the same level, same gear, and they're just gonna be able to pick and ready to go, and let skill aside. So why not have that system or like already in the game?
I played Terra, and you had Corsair's Stronghold. If you were level 30 or in between level 30 and 65 or whatever, they would automatically set you to level 60. They would give you the same gear as everybody else, but you had crystals that would help influence how your resistance and your damage and all that. So maybe they could give you the same gear, the same weapons, but they could let you have maybe tokens or amulets or anthems or something, like the little dagger magic things to help you out, basically. And I just personally, I keep on saying personally, but I think that it would be a great thing to have that inputted into the system.
The thing with arenas is they are going to be completely separate. And I mean, I don't mind arenas. Battlegrounds I'm not real fond of because of, it's supposed to be a war taking on, so the immersion aspect. But, arenas are something that have been around in the real world, take Rome and all of that. That's kind of where we see a lot of this, where it was an instance section. So it's not out of the question that arenas are going to be something completely different. Like, when you hop in, it's almost like Guild Wars 2 and they're the Mist, when you go in there and everything is pre-designed, because you can't take it out of that instanced arena.
Yeah, like, if they have that in the game, I would be so happy. But from what I just recall, and I have to admit, I haven't kept up as much as I did in the past because of work and real life and whatsoever. But I just recall that Steven was really against that sort of system. So that's
to me, it wouldn't make sense to not have that system, because you'll enter the arena with a level 50 and you're like level 30. You have no chance of succeeding whatsoever, depending on if you are skill based, like if you can actually survive just using your skills and know where to move and what spell to cast or something like that. Because you'll get wiped immediately if you don't have the same gear as him, the same level as him. If levels do influence how hard you hit, it would not make sense to not have that system implemented.
Well, yeah, it's kind of also my opinion, to be honest, because the only game that I can recall that didn't have a system like that would be Black Desert Online, but even they changed the battlegrounds that you need to have certain AP and DP stats to get in, and you cannot like get more than those.
See, if you did that, then I would understand. But if you could make it free for all, then I would disagree to do that.
Okay, let's jump to the next topic, because the next topic is like one of the things that I really want to talk about is and I think we already talked about it, so we might just skip it because it's what if open world PvP and sieges become boring. But we already like covered that in regard of, you know, PvE content drives PvP content.
Yeah. And I can talk about sieges, just like one line that I can throw in here for sieges. What if sieges become boring? I don't foresee sieges ever becoming boring, because there's always somebody who has something to lose. You know, the people who have houses, for instance, inside of a node have houses that they could lose. You could lose your financial stability if you lose your market node, that kind of stuff. There's always going to be a risk for people, and that risk is what's going to drive and make it exciting, because you don't want to lose.
Exactly. So basically there's a timer on sieges as well. So if you're the one being attacked, all you have to do is basically last until, you know, the timer's up. I don't know if the node will crumble or will rebuild itself after the timer's over and you win as the defender. But there is time in between everything, as I said before. So for like a stage 3 village, as an example, there's going to be 20 days prior, or not prior, cannot be siege for a long period of time. So yeah, you'll have a certain amount of time to get your stuff done. And if you do not succeed, people will always want to come back and try to claim it again, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So losing fuels success.
Yes, absolutely. And I think what it was is, I think it's at minimum, it's the time it takes for a siege to be engaged, which I think was, depending on the length of the siege, let's just say it's 7 days. After a failed siege, it cannot be sieged again for another 7 days.
And that'll get people ready, get people going and wanting to do it more, you know?
Okay, but let me take what you just said and jump straight to the next topic, because I'm just gonna skip this one because we pretty much talked about it already. And here's my opinion on this one. It's, will sieges slow down over time? And we talked about this earlier, where we said that the PvE content will drive the PvP content, and people always want to explore and become better, and so on. But I still think that there is a pretty good chance that in some situations, on some servers, you will not have as much sieges going on as on other servers, depending on the player base. I think that's to be honest, I think that's because from my experience also, and I'm talking a lot about my own experience because I know that's pretty much the only thing I can go on, to be honest. A lot of the hardcore PvP focused player, they mostly gather all on one server because they want the competition. And then you have the casuals, they go more towards the other server. So I feel like depending on the server you pick, you might have a siege like every day, every 7 days, and you might have a siege maybe once or twice a month. So, or maybe even not for a certain amount of time. So what do you guys think?
I think that sieges in the beginning will be very slow. Like there's not going to be anything because people are building up and rising. And when people get at a comfortable stage, that's when sieges will start happening, because sieges will happen when people are comfortable with their manpower and you know, way of helping themselves. And if people lose a siege, then they'll lose some of that manpower and lose some of the ability to sustain themselves, and they'll have to build it up. So it's going to be a rise and fall kind of thing. I can't like foresee it ever being, hey, sieges aren't happening anymore. depending on the player size, of course, like the server size, say like there's 5,000 people on one server. I could see that compared to the 10,000 max on a server.
And well, I kind of think we'll see just slow down over time. Well, actually, yes, just due to how sieges function mechanically. Because you got to remember, as the towns go up and up and up, the amount of resources it takes to build up a town is pretty much the amount of resources it's going to take to tear them down. It's going to take time just naturally as people grow and solidify their power base to gather the resources in order to take the nodes. There will always be sieges, but as you said, as the game goes on, sieges naturally are going to slow down because more and more of the map is higher than it was once upon a time. And also you have the people wondering, am I going to really want to risk everything I have? Because here's the thing. If I attack Zara's guild, for instance, and I fail, okay, it puts me a mark on her map going, these guys have already attacked us once. Maybe we should attack them and just put a halt to it. There's eventually going to hit that limit as well, where people are going, if I start attacking, if I know I can't wipe them out, it might be better to wait until I'm sure I can do it. So that way I don't get, the revenge kill later.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I just think, like I said, I'm not disagreeing on with anything you guys said. I just think the whole aspect, of preparation and risking stuff to do sieges. People are lazy. We're all gamers. We're all lazy to some degree, and we don't want to risk what we have, and we don't want to risk getting crushed by bigger communities that we try to crush before. So yeah, I think really it's gonna be interesting to see how the different servers gonna evolve. Like that's like one of the things that I'm really looking forward to see how I'm gonna be on multiple servers, just seeing how the servers actually evolve. That's gonna be the most interesting thing for me.
I think that this stuff makes you think. It kind of influxes the community aspect of Ashes of Creation. It'll make people come together and try to sort these things out, and that's what I'm really excited for about it.
Yeah, me too. So let's jump to our last topic, and this is one where we can actually go nuts. And this is one where I actually want to start us off with, because what do you want out of sieges and PvP? I personally, out of sieges, I want PvP on a mass scale where you actually have to use your brain, and because and this is not meant to be like a diss, but I hate Zerg PvP. By Zerg I mean just like two big balls of people just running around each other trying to kill each other. I want sieges to be something that you really have to put your head into it. You need to plan, you need to communicate, you need to scout, you need to do real live action warfare.
Organized, basically.
Exactly, organized. And the same goes for PvP. I hate zerging till, I used to play a lot of Guild Wars 2. I did a lot of zerging and other MMOs as well, and I just hope that they change. That's the one thing that really attracted me to Ashes of Creation, is that they're gonna have sieges. I know Black Desert Online had nodes as well, but it was still just zerging, one group against the other, run around, pop your skills, run around some more, go into the gate, run out of the gate, zerg.
So basically, in my guild, we do lots of thinking ahead. And I want all this thinking we do as a group, as a guild, to actually be put forth. I want it to apply. I want us to actually sit down, we'll talk about it, we'll say, hey, this seems to work best, let's do that. Instead of saying, let's just go forth and just slaughter anyone we can see in it, being unorganized. And I don't want that to work. I don't want unorganized combat to work like in some games it does. I want it to be a system where you can control the flow of the battle. And I also want there to be a sense of reward or success out of it. Of course, there's going to be that, but I just want it to be empowering so that it's good for the morale for the team, for the people who spent the time and went out of their way to do it. I just, that would be key for me.
You know, the idea of the Zerg came up. The idea, when people think Zerg, they just think this mass ball of people. In medieval warfare, it really was who brought the most amount of people to the side, often had the highest advantage, more often not won. In games, though, the idea of the Zerg is everyone just sticks together. One way to actually solve the Zerg issue is have player collision. With player collision, you wouldn't be able to run around in a Zerg ball because you wouldn't be able to stack upon one another. Not like you can.
But isn't respawn also a big issue when it comes to Zerging? Because in my opinion, the aspect of, you know, okay, I die, I gotta be back in like a minute.
Yeah, well, with fast travel, they are saying there's hardly any. So dying actually in this one, depending on how big the world is a deterrent to Zerging. Because even if it takes you 3 to 5 minutes, your team could be wiped out in that amount of time. It's when you can get back in under 10 that it's a problem. But I mean, the idea of, like you said, running through a gate, if you have 100 people and I've got 20, we could essentially, you know, stop you at the door and nullify your numbers with player collision. It's when you can have all 100 people stacking on one person that you get a Zerg ball like you do.
Okay, Angelos, you said earlier that you were more of a PvE player, right?
Yes.
So let me ask you this: like, what do you want out of sieges or open world PvP? Like, what is it you are looking for the most?
Honestly, I love the idea of open world PvP because it does provide that immersion factor for me. The idea of being able to walk around and actually, you know, if someone really ticks me off, I can just stab them in the face for one thing. You steal my camp spawn in PvE, I'll kill you. You know, if my raid group is going in to do a dungeon, I will kill the raid group in front of us, you know, to make sure we get it. Those kinds of things I like. And I like the idea of meaningful PvP in that I can prevent other players from building up cities and stuff by taking out their caravans. And same with sieges, being able to see something that took months to build either be destroyed or saved is something that is more meaningful. It's one of the reasons why I don't really play Battlegrounds, because I can do freaking Ultric Valley 1,000 times and it's still the same battle. It's been the same battle in World of Warcraft for 12 years now. You know, it's never changed. It's always the same thing. But seeing how when we start seeing sieges, an entire city may no longer be on the map or accessible anymore, that is something that it makes the world feel alive. It makes the world feel like more than just a game, that the game goes on after you log off. Not like a lot of these modern MMOs where you log off and you're back on and you're in the exact same place. Nothing's really changed. You just got to pick up your quest where you left off.
It makes you feel like you have an impact on the world.
Yes, and I also want to walk through the world and have to look over my shoulder just to be afraid that there's somebody who might actually try to attack me, and I have to be constantly alert. And I think that would be nice, but I also want, you know, the relaxed time as well when I know I can be safe in some aspects. But just, you know, emotions, the PvP can give you.
Okay, I was going to say, one of the things that makes open world PvP, I hate when I hear people that go, I'm playing an MMO, but I have Netflix on in the corner. I'm just not really paying attention.
Yeah.
This has you immersed in the world because there's always that possibility of Zara wanting what you have. And while you're watching Netflix, she comes up and stabs you in the throat, you know, and takes what you got. It's that always being keyed up, that adrenaline rush of there could be danger everywhere. It's actually ESO is the game I play the most of. Imperial City is one of my favorite because it's a zone where there's a lot of PvE, lots of monsters, lots of data, lots of stuff to kill, but all three factions can enter. So you have to be watching. You could be fighting a group boss and seeing the enemy come running over the field. You're like, oh crap.
Yeah.
You know?
So from what I'm like hearing from you two, and I think if I say that, I think I'm gonna be right about it, is all three of us, we just want full-time immersion.
Mm-hmm.
We want just to be in, like, honestly, I just gonna call it. We want to be like Sword Art Online. We just want to be in the game. We don't want to be focused on Netflix or anything. We just want to focus on the game without it getting boring, grindy, or repetitive.
Exactly.
It's
See,
the
and what they're
difference between
yeah,
living in a world and playing a game.
that's exactly what I want. It becoming your own separate reality, basically.
I just, to be honest, I made a video about this, and I rarely do anything on YouTube. Like you guys can hear my voice, and my YouTube skills are amateur, but the main thing that I want out of this game, and the main thing that I hope Sieges, PvP, PvE, everything that Ash is gonna have to offer, and the main thing that I want out of this is just, I want an adventure where I can come back to every day, and I want to come back to every day and experience something new. I don't want to be like, yeah, I'm coming in, and what am I doing today? I'm doing the same stuff as yesterday. So I don't want that.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because remember back in the day where when you didn't log in, it felt like you missed something, and how
Yes.
modern games are. I didn't log in this week. Who cares? It's going to be the same when I log in. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
playing a
Yes,
game.
yes.
Oh, I'll come back when the next patch or DLC comes out. In Ashes, you could come back and nothing is the same as what you were in. You want to log in every day to see what changes, because you could log in and went, I logged out in the city and now I logged back in and there's nothing but burning ruins behind me.
Yeah,
You know?
Oh, that would be so awesome. That would be so awesome.
That would be terrifying.
Log in and go,
first place.
what just happened here?
No, imagine first 3 months of the game, and you and your buddies, you build your nodes, and I don't know, you have to go see your grandma for 3 days, and you're all happy. Yeah, our node is so great. Yeah, 3 days later you come back, node is gone, and you're like, all right, who did this? Let's start like an adventure of revenge. Let's find those villains, and it's a whole new thing that's happening, and that's I think that's like what most people attracts to this game.
It can influence you in multiple ways too. Either you could just flat out give up. Like, I worked so hard on building this node up. I'm so tired and exhausted. All my resources are gone. What do I do? I'm just gonna like lie here in the dirt and do nothing. Or you could be like, you know what? I'm gonna be the underdog and get my shit back. I'm sorry for cussing. I don't know if that's allowed.
Don't worry, go for it. It's okay.
But people will take it in more than one ways. Like, you were a hardcore PvPer, you were doing all this stuff. Now your home's gone. Now everything's gone. You want to be a PvEer. Now you want to relax and just be like, hey, I put so much effort into all that, but now I'm just tired and I want to settle down, you know? There's just multiple things about this game that I'm really excited for.
And here's the thing, and I know some people, I know it's not popular. We want lots of people to play Ashes of Creation. I will say Ashes of Creation, the way it's being designed, may not be for everybody. And you have to accept that. There is real loss. There is real like commitment you have to put in here. If you are into a game that, you know, you can never lose anything, there are tons of MMOs out there for you to look at. But here's the thing. Here's the thing you got to think about. There are tons of those games out there, and there's more being made every day, but they can't seem to hold an audience. Why is that? It's because nothing ever changes. It's always the same. And it's nice to see something coming out that will actually change the way we view MMOs. This used to not be a thing. Like, things would change in some of the older MMOs, and maybe not to this extent because there was a lot of lockdown stuff, but in this one you could really log in and everything could be gone. And it's the same with the rise of these survival sandboxes. How they're doing so well is because people are starting to see in those games you can lose everything. Your character can die in some of them and never come back. But people still play these. Some people might not like it and it might not be your thing, but there are tons of other games out there where if you really don't want to lose anything and you really just, you know, want to see the same old, there are tons of other MMOs, and maybe Ashes isn't your game.
Okay, here's the thing, and I'm gonna use the word worried. Because I also work in the industry, and I know there's always a certain pressure, you know, to do financially well, keep your player base happy, and because you mentioned this now a couple times, you know, how games used to be and how games are now, and I feel like these days, a lot of the people that play MMOs or RPGs, they're like, there's a lot of whining. This is my personal opinion. If you want to flame me, chat, go ahead. You can troll me. You can call me names. Go ahead. This is just my personal opinion. But I feel like there's a lot of whining. Like, I want this. I want this. I want this. There is no, like, hey, work for it. There's no, I want to work for this. This is epic. I want this. So I feel like,
Well, that's analysis to our society. The people
Yeah,
are like, I
yeah.
deserve everything.
So the
We're all
point,
handed all these things in the first place.
exactly. So
Mhm.
the thing,
Kind of expected.
the thing that I'm worried about the most is when the way the game is meant to be played is gonna hit those types of people. They're like, hey, they just destroyed our node, and I don't like this, so I'm going on the forum and I'm writing you a paragraph, and then tomorrow I'm gonna write you a book about it. Why I do not want this, and like that's something that worries me because I know there's gonna be a point where this is gonna happen. So I just hope that they are gonna stay true to what they said, that not everybody's gonna be happy, and they just keep on their vision, just doing what
You
they.
can't satisfy everyone.
Yes. Well, people try these days. Trust me, people try.
And what happens to those games? They disappear after several months. Like they don't have the staying power of some of the older games. And I've said this to Steven multiple times. I've said this from the start. It's good to get feedback from your community, but never let your community guide what you're doing.
Yes.
You stick to your vision, and you can let their feedback kind of mold what you wanted to make. But this is still your project, your passion project. And that's something that why I backed it, was because it's from a gamer who wanted to make his MMO. And I'm hoping that because this is from a gamer who wants to make their MMO, they're not going to fall to the, oh, let's make our pocketbook bigger, right? Like that's what so many of the other ones are. Let's how much we can make out of this versus make an enjoyable game. This is something like he wanted to make for himself, and hopefully they stick to their vision. And gamers are the worst at knowing what they want. They think they know what they want, but they really don't. They don't.
I would say the generation of gamers, like I don't know, like you and me.
Fair enough.
Like I don't know, like if all right, I play a lot of video games, and I have a smaller community around my stream, and there are younger people in that community, and there are older ones, like older than I am. And once in a while, when I'm playing something, and we're starting to talk on Discord, I just notice like the younger guys, they don't have any patience. You know, like they're like, yeah, you know what, I want that skin, but I don't want to do anything. I just want it. And then I have an older gentleman who talks about, yeah, I did this one quest in EverQuest. Took me 3 weeks. I didn't sleep once. I didn't go to the bathroom.
Yep.
So I feel like, you know, you kind of have to adjust to some degree, but I really don't want them to adjust and just make, you know, something that we had in the past.
That's coming back to the lazy subject of us being lazy people. Well, not necessarily us, but the people who don't want to work for the items that they have.
Right.
It's and as I was saying, as you were saying, I mean, there is like he's building his own game. He had his idea set in mind. Some of the players can shape the way he thinks. They could enlighten him, but if you don't like what he's doing and he's really like he's set on it, you don't have to back for their game. You don't have to be a part of the community if you don't like what he's doing. It's like your influence doesn't help us. It doesn't help the community. It doesn't help him. It's just you're being a negative Nancy if people out there are watching. I don't know.
Yeah.
And Zeph has it perfect. Entitlement is choking societies. I deserve to be able to do this. I deserve. Get good. Be a good player and get good doing it. And I mean, I know people are always like, oh, you know, with the death of these MMOs, how do we get Dungeon Finder? People complain of, I can't get groups. I don't have the time. I can't do this. And then what happens? We get Dungeon Finders. Oh, why is there no content anymore? Or why does no one talk in dungeons anymore? Well, because you freaking asked for a Dungeon Finder. Now no one needs to.
Yeah, that's I don't know. Like I feel like it's just a generation thing. Like when I played World of Warcraft since it came out. And I went through all the big changes, Dungeon Finder, looking for Raid Finder, and lately, once or twice a week, I go onto a classic server, and it's a completely different experience. But I enjoy it way more than I do World of Warcraft right now. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the podcast. Like, we went through all our topics. So if anybody in the chat has any questions for Agelos or Zara or me, like, go at it. You can ask them anything you want. But don't try to ask for their phone number. I did that. They denied. So yeah.
Well, I mean, if people really want my phone,
Oh yeah,
I think that's more aimed for Zara because no one can want it.
And if you guys want to check out the Dungeon Crawl Network, please go ahead. It's an awesome website. Angelos makes awesome podcasts 10 times. Like, they're way better than this one. Trust me, they're way better than this one. And Zara has an awesome guild. If you guys want to go check that out, feel free. So if you guys have any questions, like, go ahead. Like, this would be the time.
Shout out to all my friends, everybody who supported me along the way. My mom, my dad, my guild, my homies, my ex-boyfriends. Even though I hate you, I still love you. I just really appreciate you all. All the naysayers, everybody who bullies me and tilts me, respect to you. But you know, if I see you, I'm gonna punch you in the nose. But thank you guys all. Thank you for sure.
Okay.
A little scared now.
Yeah, I'm kind of like I'm lost of words. That's something new.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad she didn't say stab him in the face because I seen up in chat someone quoted that as me for 2017, so I'd have to charge your royalties if you used to stab you in the face. So
okay.
Someone has a question for me. Yay!
Yes, Agelos, what's your opinion on pre-planned battlegrounds, like zones that gets controlled through a battleground, such as Wintergrass from World of Warcraft? Like a separate node that levels up through frequent PvP. Oh, that's a good one.
I like that. Yeah. All right. So my thought on this, again, it all depends on how it's set up in terms of, are they going to limit people in or out? Obviously, for server stability, they need to limit a certain amount of people. But like the problem with Wintergrass was it was a pure number type thing. Like you could have X amount of people versus X amount of people. The one thing that was really nice about that was they limited based on the other side. So if there were only 5 people defending, there could only be 5 people attacking. The problem is with those kinds of things, those systems, the defense obviously has an advantage. They have walls, they have guards, they have stuff to help defend. I do like the idea of a node that levels up via just plain old PvP. The problem with that is how does it get degraded? Does it just fall apart after a certain period of time? That tends to be my problem. I actually kind of like the idea of not these pre-planned battlegrounds, but almost like a zone going to war, and that's a battleground for a period of time.
To be honest, I really do like the idea. That would be, I don't know, maybe some future content.
Yeah.
That would be
absolutely.
That would be definitely.
I think that would be fun. Like all of a sudden you get a notification of X zone is under siege or is now a battleground, and everyone is now flagged as a combatant. These are the objectives, you know, whatever they may be, and you get rewards based on that.
I don't think it would really make people as motivated unless it was like a key factor of the node. So, you know, because like say it's just like a waypoint in Guild Wars 2. Oh, the waypoint is under attack. You know, you don't really care about that because you're just questing. You can walk everywhere, you know.
Well, that's a matter of incentive. Obviously, everything in game is a matter of incentive. People ignore entire systems in MMOs because the incentive isn't there, which is, again, that whole entitlement generation. Whatever happened to people playing the game just because it was a game to play? Exactly. But developers nowadays have to go ahead and incentivize their players to play their content. Oh, I'm not going to do that raid because it doesn't give me anything good. Or I'm not going to, like you said, take that waypoint or help defend it because I don't really care. But in Guild Wars 2, there was no reason. There wasn't enough of a reason. But if you can add enough negative, such as a zone going to war in a battleground and your side loses and it hurts you, I actually don't think incentives are good. I think disincentives are better. Making people go, if I don't defend a waypoint for whatever reason, it hurts me because people will jump away from incentives going, I have enough of X item, but people will hardly ever back away from, oh, if I lose that, I get a debuff.
I got an incentive for you. What if they take that system we just talked about and put it on instant raid entrances. For example, you need to there's gonna be open warfare, battle royale, whatever you want to call it, with whatever guild wants to do that raid that night, and the winner gets that raid node or raid instance for the next 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That way, you're gonna have daily like PvP content on that raid node.
Well, yeah, but there again, what you just brought up, and I'm glad you did. That is both an incentive to hold it and a disincentive not to do it.
Definitely.
Because the winning side gets the incentive of having exclusive access to that raid for a period of time, whereas the disincentive is you losing access. This is very much reminiscent of Dark Age of Camelot and their raid zone, Darkness Falls. Whoever controlled the most keeps or whatever it was had access. Everyone else got blocked out. So there was an incentive to do the PvP, so you had access to this dungeon that gave very good rewards.
That's true. All right, we got one more question. I think that's gonna be the last one. Wait, Lucy, okay. Lucy got another one. Wait, no, we got two.
No. Wait, where?
Wait.
Yeah.
Lucy is like, punishments work way better. They really do. No one likes being punished.
Moosney10 asks, we know that there will be nodes underground. Do you have any opinions on sieging these nodes, such as difficulty of sieges, trading, etc.? If might also be harder to enter the underground due to limited entrances.
Yes, that's what I was thinking about. See if there's only one entrance. Say you have to go through like a cave underground, and that's your only way in and your only way out. That will stunt both sides because you're trapped in this hole, and you're more likely to get, wiped out because you have nowhere to run to if you're in the hole in the first place, and you have no way to get caravans to come in and give you all the materials you need, especially if the people are blocking the way in. But
we're talking during sieges, right?
Yeah, we're talking about sieges. I don't know if caravans can influence people in the siege.
Because here's my opinion from a strategic point of view. I assume during sieges, there's gonna be a certain area that is like protected or is meant for the siege to go down in, like the siege around the node that is getting attacked, and maybe a couple of kilometers more. But I think, in my personal opinion, if the entrance to the underground is somewhat involved during a siege, and I'm talking just about the entrance, I think that's gonna be a big no-go, because I think, in my opinion, it's gonna break the siege mechanic. Because the way I see it right now, the way I think about it is, somebody is trying to attack underground node, and the defenders, all they have to do is hold that one entrance.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of it that way, that it would break the siege mechanic, because I was looking at one of the maps on Ashes of Creation, in Node Part 1 video. But there are these rocky terrains covering this one node area that would make it more difficult for people to enter and more difficult for people to leave. So if you're going to siege this node, or this node capital or whatever, it would be hard to get in the first place, and the caravans and, all these things that could possibly affect the node in the first place. Like, you're in the Neverwinter stage where it's 30 days of winter. Like, all these things can affect the people that are influencing the siege in the first place.
There's also something that you said that you might not have thought about. You said it's hard to get in. That works both ways.
Yeah,
you kill
exactly.
a player and they respawn outside the node. They have to pass through your siege lines to get to it. There's no other way into that area.
But
so
when you respawn at your node that you're defending,
we don't know that. They may not, to prevent that type of spawn camp where you could just keep running back and back and back and back.
Gotcha.
If they spawn you outside the node or outside the area that's under siege, then yeah, you have to make your way through the lines again in order to get in.
That's a good point. That would be quite something to actually play through, to be honest.
And Lucy said, don't defenders spawn inside a node? You spawn inside a node if you die in a non-siege state. We don't know the rules of a siege state. Maybe all respawns are blocked out during a siege. Like, because if you're a citizen of a node and you die out in the field, you'll respawn at the node. It makes sense, right?
Yes,
great.
Yes.
But during a siege, they could block that. They did that in Shadowbane. You respawn back at your city in non-siege time. But when a siege happened, the world tree that brought you back, or the city tree, was blocked off, and you spawned randomly outside your walls somewhere at an NPC spawn line.
That would be honestly, if they would do that in Ashes, I would be so happy, because that takes the whole worry that I got about respawn times and zerging. That takes it straight away. It's just gone. All right,
there you go. I fixed it for you.
Thank you. You fixed it. Somebody take notes.
Sorry.
Yeah, tell Intrepid to listen.
Well, it says defenders would win on a timer or through defeating the NPC staff in general at the basically they're defending themselves. So I don't think that they would have the people respawn inside the node, because if all they have to do is last, it's kind of easy to last in some aspect.
Oh yeah, it's a lot easier than actually pushing forward. That's why defenders always have the bonus.
Yes.
And if they respawn outside of their node and they can't come back, then that would make it much harder for them to win. So they actually have to try and, defend themselves.
We got one more question, and this is going to be the last one for today. Intrepid has mentioned that the possibility of there being sieges upon nodes that are NPC-based, such as world bosses. Do you think allowing the monster coin system for these sieges is a good idea or a bad idea? I think, honestly, having the monster coin system active during sieges is a bad idea, because we already know that summoners can summon big things. So I think there's already something in the works in that regard, and I think adding something like it on top of it is not a good idea.
I'm not necessarily sure it would work in the first place because of how they're trying to work the mechanic, because monster coins will have their own scheduled events and stuff like that, and sieges could be randomized. So maybe if what you're saying is people can start a siege on top of a monster event, I don't think that would happen in the first place, because
they were talking about like that one node video where, you woke in a dragon by their city kind of deal.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
No. What I meant was, Steven. Oh, I need to write this stuff down before I do a podcast. Steven mentioned something about when they talked about summoners for the first time, that several summoners can summon bigger monsters during sieges. I don't know if you guys... during
one of my interviews. I broke the news.
I think. Was it yours?
It was mine. Yeah,
it was yours. Okay, there you go.
All
right. So he did not say no to that. He said that there's a pretty good chance that this will happen. So what I said was, if that is a possibility that we will have that during sieges,
right.
that. And then I said, adding the monster coin system on top of that would be way too much, because then you would have a big ass golem or whatever summoned by eight summoners, and then you're gonna have a bunch of people taking control of a bunch of monsters, and then all is gonna then hell is gonna break loose. So I think that the monster coin system should stay away from the siege system, like completely separate them.
Well, to stick to his question, I'm gonna say this, because this is an NPC siege, if you will. There's no city that takes over if it fails. It also depends on what the stakes are for these. If all right, let's say a dragon spawns at your metropolis. What are the sieges? Can the dragon completely destroy it, or do monster sieges just de-level it? If it wasn't as bad as a player siege, I say let the monsters things go on, because that just makes it more fun. But there has to be a certain level of, an enemy guild can't go, someone spawned a dragon, let's fight for the dragon. See, I'm actually kind of okay with that, because that's also a level of fun that's in there, because you're also limiting your character. It's not your character. You get a whole new set of skills. You are limited to the abilities, health pool, and everything of the monster you're playing. So I actually think that's actually more of a fun thing, and I hope they do it. Now, again, a player siege blocks off everything. This would only affect when someone wakes up a dragon or something along those lines.
See, is that even a monster event?
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, is that a monster event though? Like a monster
Yes.
coin event? Okay.
Yes,
clarifying.
monster coin event. Yes. So if a dragon spawns, tying monster coin events to it would be a lot of fun. I think that would be something that would be really, really cool. Because here's the thing: the monster coin event has its own limiting factor. Remember, there's a limited number of monsters that are available.
Yes,
So
yes.
say there's 50. So only 50 people could use coins based on the type of monster. It's not like you'd be spawning a guild of 2,000 people all of a sudden spawn zombies and you went, wow, this was supposed to be 50 zombies. Now there's 2,000. No, there's only 50 spots. You just take over from what an NPC would.
And also, if you do get the monster coin, can you join is it like a server wide thing? Can you join from anywhere in the map, the world?
I think you have to be close enough to instigate it, but
Because
We don't know that. We don't know that.
if the dragon spawn thing happens right next to your node, is that like caused by the node change, and can people from anywhere in the world come participate in that?
I would assume, and I thought about this long and hard, and I talked about it on the Discord a couple of weeks ago. Here's the way I think about it. You have some event triggered somewhere, right? And then somebody, like, I don't know, let's say a monster attacks your node, and then you say, oh, I got this monster coin. All right, I'm gonna, control the monster, make sure, our node doesn't get destroyed. You guys kill me, you guys get your stuff. Next time somebody else uses his coin, gets the monster, protects our node, and I get some stuff. So the way I thought about it is, it would make more sense to me if you use your coin and you get signed up for a queue, and then if there's a monster when somewhere happening in the world, you get a chance to control that monster without any regard of having any control on where the monster spawns.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I looked at it, because that would make a little bit more sense to me than being able to trigger events whenever you want.
Right. And this very well could be something along the lines of, say, Guild Wars 2 in their event system. We may not know something is going on unless it's a big meta raid or something and they decide server-wide. They're going to be like, Node C has activated a dragon. How are we going to know until it just happened? It could be a lot like the events in Guild Wars 2 where you hop on and all of a sudden, oh, wait, there's a champion up? It just...
Yeah.
Or, Zaitan's champions are up. Those kind of things. Now, those were on a timer, but those kind of things, if you be in a zone, all of a sudden a dragon pops out, like the Claw of Jormag in Guild Wars 2. That was a time one, but if it were random, you wouldn't know unless you were in the zone.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. That's actually, I think that we're gonna call it quits for today, because I think we talked a lot about PvP and everything, and I really did enjoy having you two on the podcast, and I hope you guys don't mind coming back in the future.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
And to everybody in chat, make sure to check out Jellos and Zara's websites. Make sure to follow them on all their social sites. You know what? I command you to follow them on their social sites. And thanks everybody for watching. We will be back in 2 weeks again. We're gonna do this every 2 weeks. And thanks everybody for watching. Thanks you two for being here.
Yep, thank you for having me.
And
Thank you so much.
And I wish everybody a good remaining weekend, and I talk to you all in 2 weeks. Bye, guys.
See ya.
Bye.